Yo, what up, Street Dogs there, Kim? Alright, so these are just some random poetic thoughts I have on creativity. So what is creativity, why is creativity important, and so forth. So creativity literally means to create, right? So that, like, I don't think that some people are born creative and other people aren't born creative. We're all born, you know, as infants, as babies, and one of our great joys in life is to create stuff, to make stuff, and you know, consider a kid with Legos, consider a kid with crayons and markers. And it seems that we get lots of great joy from creating stuff and making stuff. And I know for myself, I feel the most alive when I'm making stuff, when I'm creating things. I'm out and about, I'm active, and so it does seem that maybe the best way to live life is to figure out interesting, novel ways that could maximize our creative abilities. Now, I think one thing that's important to consider is what hinders us from being creative. So some thoughts. Lack of sleep, sleep deprivation, not sleeping enough, obviously a bad thing. You know, too much preoccupation with work, making money and stuff like that often hinders us and gets in our way. Stresses, anxieties and stuff like that. And I generally tend to believe that if one wants to become maximally creative and productive, you do need some base level of freedom from anxiety, freedom from worries and stuff like that. And so even with money, it's not like once you have $1 million or 10 million or 100 million or $1 billion, suddenly you don't worry about money. I think it's more of a mental thing. There's some people who have all the money in the world, but they're still concerned about money, right? Like if you're a billionaire who's afraid of losing, you know, $1 million and then becoming a 999 millionaire instead of billionaire, then you're kind of in this kind of a fragile position. But anyways, so I tend to think the best ways to be creative is to allow yourself to indulge in all forms of creativity. So that means painting, dancing, drawing, making photos, making videos and stuff like that. There's so many different ways that one could be creative, and the problem is we tend to limit our creative outputs to just like one small narrow thing, and that's I think what actually hurts us the most, is that like, oh, we feel like we have to be consistent with our artwork. It's like, oh, I could only, you know, be a photographer, or I could only do videos, or I could only do X, Y, and Z. But it does seem that the more we could expand and augment our creative forces to create in different sort of ways and forms, the better. So what does this mean, like in you know, practical ways and practical thinking? I mean, just like my very pragmatic ways of thinking about this is then, you know, trying to, okay, so I also do think that one's environment is actually important in terms of your creative output. So for example, here in Providence, Rhode Island, my mind is so much more creative than it is back in Southern California. And why is this? I think the reason is that living in more dynamic neighborhoods, environments, and so forth are actually more conducive to creativity. Also, I do think that even, you know, a lot of people, oh, you know, I want to live in California where it's always warm and sunny, I'll be happy, blah, blah. But actually, that's actually not the case. Is, you know, living in a place that has variable climate and snow and stuff like that, and actually allowing yourself to go through emotional roller coasters, I think is actually better to be creative, because it's like a good movie. You need high points, you need low points. A movie that's just totally straight the whole way would be quite boring. And so similarly, when it comes to our photography and our artwork and our creativity, we need to harness more extremes in life. So I don't know, maybe it is good to sometimes be sleep deprived, but there needs to be some periods where you sleep like a shitload, right? If you are sleep deprived, you know, allow yourself a few days to sleep like 12 to 14 hours straight or whatever it may be. And also when it comes to work and productivity, it's good sometimes to be extremely productive and always working. And then there's, you know, conversely, you also need periods where you're extremely degenerate and just don't do nothing. And that's totally fine too. I think having the dynamic range and being able to barbell between your different modes of creative expression is a good thing. And I've also found for myself too is there are certain periods of time where I become very collaborative, very social, and then there's certain times I kind of go into Zen monk mode, recluse mode, and I think that's also really important for me in terms of my creativity or my innovative line of thinking, is that I need some sort of that variability. But anyways, so expose yourself to more visual stimuli, to more auditory stimuli. Find a few things that you really like and you really jive with, but also just kind of know that, you know, you gotta think about the long game. Is, you know, how can you stay creative and motivated for your whole life and for the rest of your life? That's a question that I don't really know what works for you, but I know for me it just means for me to continually challenge my thoughts, continually challenge what I believe in, affirm it, disaffirm it, and stuff like that. And just kind of like our good friend Heraclitus said, you're always in a state of becoming. And as you always become more creative, that creativity will continue to compound upon itself.